one of your functions over time has been to communicate scientific knowledge to the public.
Yeah.
And that's why I was quite surprised to hear you talk about the idea that we all exist on a spectrum where you wake up one day and you feel like you're more female and more male.
Hey guys, welcome back. We have an interesting one for you today. We're going to be taking a look at a debate on the Triggernometry podcast between Konstantin Kisin and Neil deGrasse Tyson, where they are talking predominantly about gender fluidity and trans rights. I'm going to play the clips and give my thoughts after each section of the video, so let's jump back into the action.
The XXXY chromosomes are insufficient because when we wake up in the morning, we exaggerate whatever feature we want to portray the gender of our choice. Suppose no matter my chromosomes, today I feel 80% female, 20% male. I'm gonna put on makeup. I'm gonna do that. Tomorrow I might feel 80% male. I'll remove the makeup and I'll wear a muscle shirt. Why do you care?
Yeah.
What business is it of yours to require that I fulfill your inability to think of gender on a spectrum? My only point was that if who you decide is male and female in the street is a construct of style and trends and what the beauty industrial complex wants you to see, if that's how we establish gender, then maybe some people want to be fluid within that gender identify. So they'll wear a skirt, but maybe have a beard, or they'll mix and match that in whatever way
Neil,
you want.
Sorry.
Hold on. I'm not, wait, I'm almost done. So,
Okay.
if a person using the tools of the beauty industrial complex wants to mix and match this,
Yeah.
and they are expressing their freedom in a free country to do so, why is your job to tell them not to?
So I have to pause the video already, guys. Neil's argument, in my view, is extremely weak here. It's interesting that he's saying, why are you telling me what I can think and do? But meanwhile, if anyone challenges his position and says, well, I don't think biological males should compete against women in boxing matches or other competitive sports, you're somehow being a bigot. And him and many on the left will tell you you're wrong and it should be allowed. Telling us what we should say and do, and in the same breath saying, why are you telling others what to do? This is typical elitist style of thinking. Don't tell me how things are going to be, you're not allowed, but let me tell you how it should be. And notice how at the end, Neil says, why am I supposed to accommodate your inability to think on my level? Another elitist style tactic. Well, you just can't understand the argument, so that's not my fault. That's your fault. People like this should not be trusted, guys.
Okay.
That's my only point. And so I'm speaking of gender expression and the freedom to do so. And if you want to restrict that, then what country are we living in? Yeah, go ahead.
So first of all, I don't know a single person, and we've talked to trans people on the show. We have trans employees at Triggernometry. We've spoken to all sorts of people about this issue. I do not know a single person who wants to prevent people from dressing how they want or behaving how they want or choosing any name that they want. However, the problem is...
So you don't, but you know such people are out there.
I'm sure such people exist in the same way that there are people who believe that the earth is flat and so on, but they're a tiny minority.
They exist.
It is
I don't know how tiny they are, given the dialogue today.
Fair point. However, what I would say is that the conversation in the public consciousness has become prominent not between people who want to defend the right of anyone to dress how they want and the people who want to prevent that. The reason the conversation has become an issue is that we assign and allow certain privileges to people based on their sex. If you are female, you get to go to places that only other females are in, like changing rooms and toilets and so on. If you are female, you get to compete only with people of your sex because females are at a disadvantage in physical competition to males in almost every sport. In other words, we carve out certain areas where your sex matters tremendously, even though we may respect your right everywhere else to believe that you are whatever you are, to dress however you are, etc. So your claim that today you woke up and put lipstick on and grew your hair out long and tweezed out your mustache and whatever, and therefore you are female, has an impact on other people in certain contexts in which that is a problem.
You gave only 2 contexts. Do you have others?
Sorry, I wasn't finished. And in those contexts, it is essential, people would argue, to protect women from unfair competition and from various risks for which female-only spaces already exist. That's why people are having this conversation. Okay. It's not out of bigotry.
Do you have more than those 2 examples? And I'll address each of those in turn. But do you have more than those 2? Probably not. Okay. So let me address those 2 examples directly. I'll address them.
Sports is very important.
You said that.
Female-only spaces.
I remembered. But you don't seem to have a third example. And even if you do, we presume that would be a very distant third compared to those 2 cases. All right.
No, there's a third one I can give you very easily. In this country, for politics, we have female-only shortlists for positions in Parliament. Therefore,
I didn't know about that. That's interesting. Okay.
Well, that's another example. I can give you more. So, female-only shortlists, there are certain targets within corporations for diversity targets to have a certain number of women on the board. Therefore, when you make a claim that you are female, you are attempting, whether intentionally or not, to insert yourself into categories that are deliberately designed to protect women's interests. That is the concern that people have. So there's 4 examples for you there.
So Konstantin is absolutely right on this point. There are certain privileges that each gender are assigned. The main issue here is impeding on other people's rights. It's completely fine to say and do whatever we like. We live in a free society. I would never argue that someone shouldn't be allowed to think they are the opposite gender. However, we cannot allow the rights of that individual for self-expression to trample on the rights of others when it comes to these societal privileges.
Please address them.
Sure. So interesting about the Parliament. I have to look into that to find out what is it try to ensure the representation of women? Is that the goal?
That's correct.
Yes,
okay,
correct.
Fine. So that's a perfectly noble cause there. So about personal changing spaces, okay? That's a solvable problem, of course. And we basically have accomplished that here in Manhattan, where I live. Practically all bathrooms are either multi-gender or solo bathrooms, so only one person at a time, or you walk into a space and there's stalls that are closed off, but then you exit the stall and you come to a communal sink, okay?
Yes.
So it's a solvable problem where everyone has a private space rather than for themselves, rather than having a gender private space. Okay, it's solvable on a level. By the way, let me give an example. We have a school from the early 20th century in New York, and I just saw it the other day. There's an entrance here and an entrance there, and this entrance says girls, and this entrance says boys. It's like, what the fuck? What? You separate them just to enter the school? I can look back on that and say that was ridiculous. You guys, what were you thinking? But back then, I'm sure it made complete sense that you're going to send the girls through that entrance, and there's an elementary school, and the boys through that entrance, okay? So it is possible to look back on whatever you were doing and say, my gosh, that was really short-sighted, and look at the solution that was proposed and implemented. That was a good idea. We moved on from that.
So Neil's making a point here that I think lacks a lot of critical thinking. He gives an example of something that happened in the past that he thinks was wrong. Girls and boys entering through different entrances at a school, and then he draws an equivalence between that and allowing men or women to switch their genders. He says we moved on from that. So the mistake he's making here is thinking, well, if I can find any example from the past where we did something wrong, I can now use that mistake from the past in order to justify almost anything in the present. The problem with this argument is that the two things are not equivalent in almost any respect. You would have to find two instances that are so similar that you could use that as an example to draw from. Say, for example, if we were segregating a certain group in society today and not affording them the same rights, then we would look back and say, okay, we did that in the past, and we know we should not do that now.
Okay, so I remember boys' rooms where you come out and, you whip it out and we'd all be peeing into a trough, okay? We don't have those anymore.
We do, because we're technologically very far behind.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then we had urinals just lined up on a wall that was a little more private, and now those urinals have little small but real dividers, so you're not like looking over. So there are solutions to the privacy problem, and we've all but solved that here. I can't speak for every state in the United States. Definitely here in New York City, the bathrooms. It's not all right. That's that. Second, with sports, very interesting. There was a case where a woman wanted to be They wanted to disqualify her from an event. She had very big muscles, and she had naturally high testosterone levels. Okay, she was genetically female, but unusually high testosterone levels, and so that weirded everybody out. So I'm wondering whether the future of those sports is you don't contest gender with gender, you contest hormone ratios.
Well, hold on a second.
What
But
do
the
you think of
the differences physiologically between men and women are not just hormonal. Women have a different hip angle. They have different heart capacity. They have different lung capacity. I mean, there are profound physiological differences, different bone density. We've had professional athletes on the show to talk about it.
I don't have a problem with that. So then you find ways to slice the population so that whatever the event is interestingly contested. So, for example, I wrestled in my life. I was captain of my high school wrestling team. It would be unfair for me at 190 pounds, which is what I was back then, to wrestle someone 120 pounds.
Hold on. It would actually be unfair for you to wrestle someone who is also 190 pounds but female.
Let me work my way there. Let me just work my way there, because
fine.
You are. I respect how active your brain is, but I've thought about all this, and just allow me to speak it at the rate that I do. Okay.
Go for it.
So it would be unfair. So they have in wrestling. They said, let's make weight categories. Okay. So we make weight categories. So I don't wrestle the 120. I wrestle a 190 pounder. So a wrestling match is not just this one person against the other person. It's 10 matches. And each one is intensely interesting because they are matched. Okay? So what the trans conversation is foisting upon us is the need to find ways to slice the athletic universe such that we still have interesting fair matches. And is it a combination of, did you go through puberty as a male and then transition? Did you have puberty blockers? What is your hormone level now if you want to compete? So it requires more creative thought. Rather than saying no to it all, let's be creative about this, as we were with wrestling, as we are with practically any other sport. In rowing, there's a heavyweight rowing and there's lightweight rowing. They don't compete against each other. Somebody came up with that to resolve the problem because more than one category of person wanted to compete. So I agree with you, it's an unsolved problem, yes, but it's not unsolvable given what we know about human physiology. So why not rise to that occasion and solve it rather than take your older view of the world and force modern emergent conduct of people to fit that?
The problem Neil's going to run into here is that there are just too many ways to slice the pie. We would have hundreds of different leagues in each sport. Right now we separate many sports into gender, and then in certain sports we separate them into weight categories, and also ages for children's sports. These are obviously to ensure fairness, but we also can't simply just continue to add more slices to the pie chart, as Neil is suggesting. In that case, should we also have a basketball league where there are height limitations? And maybe in tennis we should separate based on arm length as well, so we take reach into account. And maybe we should also look at the length from your hip to the sole of your feet in sprinting. The problem here is that you can't continue to break apart sports into infinite amounts of categories just to ensure that everyone is represented. That's the whole point of competition at a high level. Some people were born with genetic gifts that allow them to be the best in their chosen field. Neil is trying to make it more like a participation trophy where he's like, hey, let's break it up into so many categories and everyone has their own category or league to compete in, which obviously, as you can imagine, will get out of hand extremely quickly. But let's see what Konstantin has to say about it.
Okay, well, can we just come back to the female shortlist and other opportunities that women are afforded by virtue of being women? And them now being excluded from that because males are entering that competition.
Yeah, so a deeper problem, thank you for bringing that up. A deeper problem there is, why were women underrepresented to begin with? What kind of bias exists within Parliament or among the voters, maybe even the female voters, that prevented the representation from being there in the first place? That's a whole other social question that maybe can and should be answered at a deeper level than a quota coming in after the fact.
Oh, I'm not a fan of quotas, but if they exist...
That's how I would address that question.
Hold on a second. That's not addressing the question at all. The question is, female shortlist exists. Should biological males be allowed to enter those female shortlists? That's as simple as the question is.
Yeah, I'm saying I would ask why you have the shortlist in the first place. It's because there's something deeper that's wrong with society, that women are underrepresented in governance. So to say now, to protect that now and not try to get to the root of that problem, I think is the cart in front of the horse. So I would go deeper to that problem. So you don't even have to have that question.
Whose opportunities are being curtailed today because they are being forced to compete, whether in sports or elsewhere, against people who have some kind of advantage over them.
We're in a transitional period. So we have to figure that out. But the way to figure out things that require solutions to progressive change is not to regress it to how things once were. If that were the case, I would still be drinking from a segregated water fountain, okay? Oh, let's merge the water fountains and let's create the opportunities from below so that we don't even need the short list, okay? That's how I would approach this. So yeah, we're in the middle of solving that problem now. Let's figure it out together.
I think a lot of people would have an issue with what you're saying, Neil, is because they see women being denied opportunities. They see an unfair playing field, metaphorically and literally speaking.
So fix the playing field, damn it. What? Don't say it's an unfair playing field, so all of a sudden the big issue is trans women taking the slot of a woman in an unfair playing field. Fix the playing field. And you know something? The day you fix that playing field, this conversation will look completely ridiculous. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
This was obviously a contentious debate and is a big discussion right now in society. So let me know what you think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, as we're going to be making daily videos to keep you up to date on what's going on around the world. My name's Scott. See you in the next video.